So I have seen Gone Baby Girl. Gone Baby Girl. Gone Baby Gone. Can you tell I've been watching Siesta Key? Baby Girl. Let me see, what am I missing from my list? Which I did not grab off my shelf because I'm being myself. Do you ever feel like you have ghosts in your house? And again, you last night. I watched, Hi everybody, it's Audrey and welcome back to Chapter and Converse and welcome to another Booktrovert Bingo Spring Ahead book recommendation video. So today we are doing the Regal Bostonians, which are books that are either based in Boston, authors who are from Boston, or Boston adjacent. So we are stretching out the zone on this one. I realized some of these prompts were like specifically hard, but there's inspo behind them. I originally, full disclosure, was going to do books set in Maine because I'm still feeling very nostalgic for Angela Lansbury. And I have just read a few books that were set in Maine and I'm like, oh my God, there's so many books set in Maine. And then I'm like, well, Stephen King and then a bunch of books I just read. So anyway, we settled on Boston. So if you are new here, welcome. And if you have not heard my entire life story, long story short, I did go to school in Boston and then I lived there for a bit afterwards. So I have a huge fondness for Boston. I definitely consider myself a Bostonian. I don't know if I'm a Regal Bostonian, but a Bostonian. And I just have such love and affection for the city so much and so many great memories there. So on that note, I picked a whole bunch of books that I've read and I want to read, and authors who I have read from or want to read from who are from in and around the Boston area. So let's dive in to my Regal Bostonians and then some. Okay, so of course I just had to change my battery, so if I look a little bit different, that is why. Hopefully that's better. Okay, I feel like I look like very high up or very low down. Anyway, so again, if you've been here for a minute, my first author should surprise absolutely nobody. Peter Swanson, The Kynworth Killing. One of my all-time favorite books. I'm about to do a reread of this one because the sequel, The Kynworth Saving, just came out as well. So I'm a huge Peter Swanson fan. He is so dark and messed up, which I say with the utmost amount of affection because it's exactly what I want from a book. This is Strangers on a Plane. Lily and Ted meet at Heathrow Airport. They are waiting for their plane, which is delayed. They consume a couple of cocktails and start to trade some stories. And Ted tells Lily that he thinks his wife is cheating on him. He's super angry about it. And he's like, I could just kill her. And Lily is like, good call. Let me help you do that, Ted. So they wind up boarding their plane back to Boston and then shenanigans ensue. So there's a sequel. That's all I'm going to tell you about the sequel. So huge fan of his. Kynworth Killing was my first Peter Swanson book. I devoured it and I'm really excited to reread it because I haven't read it since I first read it a couple years ago. So I'm excited to like rediscover it, especially knowing what I know and finding all the clues. And then if you have read these books, rest assured, my friends, he has plenty of other ones you can choose from. So Her Every Fear is one of my other favorites of his. That actually takes place in Beacon Hill. And we have, it happens immediately, so this is not a spoiler. The woman who was murdered is named Audrey, so I have an affection for that. I had a friend who lived in Beacon Hill. I obviously spent some time there. I lived not far from there towards the end of my time in Boston. So a huge fan of that. I have not yet read 8 Perfect Murders. I still have some work to do there. But I read 9 Lives, which I loved. I just read Every Value Break, which I loved. These are not all set in Boston, but he is a Boston/Boston adjacent author. So any of his books work for this prompt. A book that I just bought for myself. I've been eyeing it for a while, I think since January when it came out. And this is All the Dark Places by Terry Parlato. I keep wanting to say Peralto. Parlato. So this literally just came in the mail. And we have a savage murder rocks a quiet Boston suburb, revealing the dark secrets at the center of a group of friends in this clever, propulsive debut. So it's a frigid January night. We have a murder. We get Boston PD detective Rita Myers. And we have a wife who is devastated over her husband's death. Secrets and lies, secrets and lies. Haven't read it yet, but it's set in Boston. So boom. The next one I have, I don't know how well this will stand up in the sense of, this is Frenemies. Let me just say that first. Frenemies by Megan Crane. One of my favorite books. I haven't read it in a few years, but I have read it so many I had an exercise ball propped up on a chair and it just fell off. Do you ever feel like you have ghosts in your house? Oh my God, that just scared me so much. Okay, Frenemies by Megan Crane. I've read this book more times than I could even begin to tell you guys. I literally have no idea how many times I've read it. So this is about a group of friends who knew each other from school. There is so much of my life in Boston as a 20-something that is in this book, and I think it's why I love it just so much. And this came out, that's what I was looking for. When did this come out? This came out in 2007. So when I say it's of a time, I mean when I was 20-something living in Boston with my friends from college. I definitely don't relate to it in my current life, but I can relate to it in my past life. So in this one, we are following a girl named Gus, and it says she approaches the big 3-0 with a plan to painlessly usher herself into official adulthood. Then she walks in on her practically perfect boyfriend, Nate, lip-locked with her supposed best friend, Helen, completely breaking the girlfriend cardinal rule. And her entire world seems more like a teen drama than a mature grown-up life. To make matters worse, her two best friends are acting awfully strange. Is everyone having a quarter-life crisis? So we watch Gus as she is dealing with this. I think anyone who has had a quarter-life crisis, who has been betrayed by friends, who is, you know, dealing with how things change. You are never going to be the people you were in college, I hope. Like, people grow and evolve and change. And sometimes that means growing apart and your life taking different turns. And I just loved everything about it. Never mind that it's all set just in places that I know and love. And I have dog-eared this. I have written in it. I have underlined it. People always ask me things that I underline. And of course, I never have a good quote ready at the time. But it's usually just things that just strike a chord with me. But anyway, I absolutely love it. So I feel like this is a great one. And then one I haven't read yet, but I very much want to, is B.A. Shapiro, and this is The Art Forger. So my dad actually read this and then passed it off to me. So this is almost 25 years after the infamous art heist at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston. Still the largest unsolved art theft in history. One of the stolen Degas paintings is delivered to the Boston studio of a young artist. Claire Roth has entered into a Faustian bargain with a powerful gallery owner by agreeing to forge the Degas in exchange for a one-woman show in his renowned gallery. But as she begins her work, she starts to suspect that this long-missing masterpiece, the very one that had been hanging at the Gardner Museum for 100 years, may itself be a forgery. So it says, The Art Forger is a thrilling novel about seeing and not seeing the secrets that lie beneath the canvas. Again, I've heard really great things about this. And then not B.A. Shapiro's only book, but another Boston author that you could definitely dive into more of her works. So definitely one to check out. And then I have a list. You guys. So let's talk about Boston books and Boston authors. So I have a lot of these books. I just didn't pull them all off the shelf. Let's be clear. So Defending Jacob by William Landay. I talked about this in my page to screen video that I did, not for bingo, but before that. And I loved this book. This is our father, Andy Barber, / our main character. He is an assistant DA in Newton, which is outside of Boston. And he reports to the scene of a crime where a student, a young boy, I want to say he's like 11 or 12 years old, is found murdered in the woods and was apparently killed on his way to school. So Andy and his team are starting to investigate, but then a lead brings the police to Andy's son, Jacob, as a suspect. So Andy is off the case and trying to grapple with the fact that his son is now a suspect in this murder. So we see Andy investigating on his own. We see how Jacob being accused of the murder ripples through the family, ripples through the town. It's very slow burn. It's very well done. It's very atmospheric. I loved the Apple TV Plus adaptation of this with Chris Evans and Michelle Dockery. I think they did a great job. I would absolutely read the book first. I think the show honors the book, but still read the book first. It's really, really well done. You get some heavy courtroom legal drama to this, which I love very much, which is why I bought the book in the first place. So I highly recommend that book. The next one I have, we talked about Peter Swanson. So The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. I also talked about that in my Page to Screen one. It was the first Margaret Atwood book I wrote. So it is dystopian, but it is set in Cambridge, is sort of the location where Offred and this story takes place. I found it just such a revolutionary book. It absolutely changed my life as a reader. It changed my life as a writer. It turned me on to Margaret Atwood. It very much opened my eyes. I read this in college. I had no idea this book existed. I had no idea this kind of writing existed. And it is absolutely a book that I just hold in such high regard. I've read it a couple of times. The TV show is amazing. Season 1 mirrors the book completely, and the acting is phenomenal, but just how, if everything collided in the worst possible way, how the world could change. It's a terrifying novel in so many ways as well, but just very powerful, I find. I love it so much. Karen M. McManus, she lives in Cambridge, so we're giving her Boston adjacent rights. She has written a ton of books, or 6 or so. Still feels like a ton to me. So I feel like One of Us is Lying is sort of what she is most known for. Two Can Keep a Secret, One of Us is Next. I read actually all of those, and I also read The Cousins. So The Cousins is set on a fictional island off Cape Cod. So you've got like Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket, and then her fake island. And we follow 3 cousins who are beckoned there by their grandmother. She basically owns the island. And their parents have not talked in years. These cousins have not been together for years. And we get lots of family secrets and reveals and drama and past timelines and present timelines. And I really enjoyed it. So not all of her books are set in Boston. The Cousins is, and she is a Boston writer, so she counts. So if you're looking for some YA thriller, she is a great one to check out. If you are looking for some adult thriller, let's talk about Lisa Gardner. I have not read a Lisa Gardner book in a minute. I can hear you guys coming for me already. So I read the book that I think about when I think of her is Touch and Go. And this is a family who lives in a brownstone in Back Bay. I want to say they live on Marlborough Street. And I lived near there. This book came out many years later. I was so unnerved when I read this book. So this family lives in this brownstone, and they go missing. And we have police investigation, and then we're following like the family timeline. This book completely freaked me out. Lisa Gardner is not one to shy away from the scary, from the creepy, from the darkness. I really, really enjoyed her books. So D.D. Warren is a Boston homicide detective. I feel like that's her biggest series, and I do have a couple of her books. So you don't have to start all of these series from the beginning. I certainly don't when it comes to something like Lisa Gardner. I have no shame dipping in the middle. And I think I feel like writers now who are writing long-term series versus back when, they understand that in order to attract new readers, you have to make the series books accessible to new readers, while also, I think, respecting your readers who have been there from the beginning. So I think authors more and more so do a really good job of pulling you in, even if you are starting on like book number 10, to get you grounded, to get you assimilated to who these characters are and what some of their past is, without burying you in past stories, but also without leaving you completely in the dark of being like, all right, I realize this is book 10 and I have no idea what's going on here. So I think she is definitely a writer that you can jump into, and I haven't read her in a while, but she, like I said, she is on my list as one that I need to get back to. Another writer which I have not read, which I know you guys have recommended to me multiple times because I like the dark and messed up in this, is Tess Gerritsen. So the TV show Rizzoli and Isles is based on her books, they've made a cajillion changes from what I understand. But her first book, The Surgeon, is constantly recommended to me. I have watched the TV show. I watched probably the first couple seasons because it's based in Boston, and I really enjoyed it, but I understand that it's not the books. But I do think I would enjoy a Tess Gerritsen book. I just haven't done it yet. So she's definitely one worth checking out. I did read, I realize this is like poo, I'm all over the board, but that's just what you're getting today. I'm sorry, guys. But I did read Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman many, many years ago. So the two sisters, their family has some magical legacy to it. And I always think of the movie, and I know that I mess up the book and the movie, but I read the book first and I really enjoyed it. I also enjoy like the kitsch of that movie. And I feel like everybody remembers I'm like already doing it when I think they're like margaritas or tequila or whatever, and they're basically like singing into their hairbrushes in the kitchen, like going around the kitchen island with their aunts. Anybody? Read the book. Read the book. Sandra Bullock and Nicole Kidman and Stockard Channing and Diane Wiest. It's just a really good Aidan Quinn. So speaking of Aidan Quinn, I just watched Desperately Seeking Susan last night for the first time, and I can't tell you how long. Nothing to do with Boston. I can't even tell you how much I enjoyed that movie. I loved that movie. I was a huge Madonna fan, like duh. I totally enjoyed the rewatch of this. It totally held up for me. I just love it. I just love it. I just love it. Anyway, Aidan Quinn was in Practical Magics. Has nothing to do with Boston. So, more Boston books. Boston writers. Hank Philippi Ryan. She is like, I feel like the gold standard of investigative journalism. She's won, I feel like 50 something Emmys. Seriously? She's crazy talented. She's written a ton of books. So I do have her latest book, The House Guest, which I have on audiobook, which I'm excited about. And then I have Her Perfect Life, I want to say it is. I'll pop up some pictures of some books here. I read Trust Me. She is just, I want to say she started with series, but she writes some Boston-based books. She's so talented. She is so just well-versed on so many things. She is obviously a great interviewer. I'm very fascinated by her. I have done online writing classes with her. I have seen her in person at writing conferences. I have done craft classes with her at Craft Fest, which is part of Thriller Fest. I just find her to be so dynamic and very much enjoy her books. So she's definitely one to read. And then another author I have read that I've talked about is Joanna Schaffenhausen. So she has her Ellery Hathaway series, which I have talked about, which I very much love. And then she also has her, is it Alexa Vega? I feel like that's an actress. I feel like that's not right. That was not right. It's Detective Annalisa Vega. I feel like Alexa Vega is an actress. And then we've got Annalise Keating. So it's just too many things in my head. So Gone for Good is the first book in the Annalisa Vega series. And I have that, but I haven't started that series yet. And I very much just enjoy her characters. The Vanishing Season is the Ellery Hathaway series. And we get Ellery, who becomes a detective. She partners with an FBI investigator. As a child, she escaped a serial killer, and the FBI investigator is the one who saved her from the serial killer. So they wind up partnering up again in the present because some things start to happen. His name is Reed Markham. He's one of my favorite characters of all time. And I just very much enjoy her writing. And again, give me some Boston adjacent books, and I am totally here for them. So another book that I read that is just in the other room, and I don't want to go up and get it, is Girl Interrupted by Susanna Kaysen. So this is a memoir, and I read this years ago. I picked this up, I remember like going to the bookstore and seeing it in college, going to the B Bookstore Mall and seeing it. And she is, when she was 18 years old, this is 1967, she went to a therapy session, therapist she'd never seen before. And at the end of the session, she was put into a taxi and brought to McLean Hospital in Belmont. And I was so struck by this book at the time. And it said for the next 2 years, she was on a ward for teenage girls in the psychiatric hospital. So McLean was known for having very famous clients, including Sylvia Plath and Ray Charles and James Taylor. And this is the memoir of her time there, of her fellow patients, of the people, the nurses, the doctors, the people who were there. So you may have seen the Winona Ryder, Angelina Jolie movie. The book is different than the movie. It is a great movie. I take nothing away from it. Give me some Jared Leto any day of the week. Angelina Jolie, Oscar-winning performance. Brittany Murphy is phenomenal in that. That movie is just packed with amazing actors and actresses. Whoopi Goldberg. I just really enjoyed it. But this book, kind of similarly to The Handmaid's Tale, and I feel like this was all kind of around the same time, where my eyes were just opening up to books outside of what I was used to reading. And I didn't read Girl Interrupted for class. Like, I just found it on my own. And I just really was very struck by this book. I haven't read it in forever, and I'd be curious to read it again, but I very much enjoyed it. It's a really, really, really interesting book. And I very much enjoyed it. I very much enjoyed it. So another book, let me see, what am I missing from my list? Oh my gosh, what am I missing from my list? Dennis Lehane, you guys. I have not read any of his books. I can hear you guys coming for me on that one too. I have seen Gone Baby Gone, which I very much enjoyed. I have Since We Fell, which I haven't read yet. There's a journalist in that, so I feel like, oh, I'll read the book about the journalist. I know I have Mystic River somewhere, which I haven't read either, but he is such a prolific writer, and I feel like he is a must-read for me, and I just haven't read him yet. But he definitely goes dark. He doesn't shy away from things. Police detective, complicated relationships. He is definitely somebody I need to be reading some more of. And then I also have We Ride Upon Sticks by Quan Berry. So this is set in Danvers, Massachusetts. This is also somewhere over there. I was like, I'm going to pull out all the books. We're just not going to pull out all the books today. We're just not going to pull out all the books today. So in this one, so again, set in the coastal town of Danvers, Massachusetts, which in 1692 was Salem Village, the site of the original Salem witch trials, we are following the Danvers High field hockey team as they discover that dark impulses of their Salem forebears may be the key to a winning season. This is set in 1989, which I love, and the Danvers Falcons are on an unaccountable win streak. Quan Berry weaves together the individual and collective journeys of this enchanted team as they storm their way to the state championship. Helmed by good girl Captain Abby Putnam, a descendant of the infamous Salem accuser Ann Putnam, and her co-captain Jen Fiorenza, whose bleached blonde Claw, and, oh, I'm guessing like her claw, right? Like the hair, everybody remembers the claw, sees and knows all, and the DHS Falcons prove to be as wily and original as their north of Boston ancestors, flaunting society's stale notions of femininity in order to find their glorious true selves through the crucible of team sport. So I have heard some great things about this. I remember years ago when it came out, Lala being all over this, and she's the one who put it on my radar. And then I picked it up, and then I did the thing that I do, and I didn't read it. So this also has some, I feel like you could do dark academia with this one as well, if you guys want to double down on it. And depending on when you were born, this might work for your generation. Doesn't work for mine, 1989, but it might work for yours. So Quan Berry was raised on Boston's North Shore and is now a professor of English at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, in case anybody's interested. But I do have this physical book somewhere back there, and this might be the time. I do love something set in the 80s. And give me some Salem witch trials. Yes, and please. I feel like that sounds like it could be a fun one. They all sound like they could be fun ones. Okay, we are going to end on that one. I'm like looking at my list. I feel like we have it covered. I feel like that's a lot of suggestions. None of this to say I can't do another video if we need more ideas. But part of the beauty of all of you guys is you guys are packed with ideas as well. So share your Boston adjacent authors, books, recommendations, what you guys are reading, which of these books maybe you would recommend others pick up stat. I'm trying to figure out, I always try and figure out like what is going to be the book that you guys gravitate to. I feel like people are definitely going to scream about Dennis Lehane and Tess Gerritsen. I feel like those are the two that are going to top the list on this one, and Lisa Gardner. Fan favorites, you guys, all around. So thank you guys so much for being here, for watching, for participating in bingo if you are. If you guys have not started playing bingo yet, it's never too late. It's 101 days in total. You can read 2 books, you can do 25 books, you can use 1 book in 4 different places. You guys know how the bingos work. And hopefully you guys will have a little bit of fun along the way. I'm having fun. I hope you guys are having fun too. So until we meet again, take care everybody and have all the fun, and I will see you guys soon. Bye guys.